Hi, this is Rob Schneider.
You're doing it. You're listening to the Chunk Podcast.
Welcome back. It is the Chunk Podcast, and we're diving right back into Week 6 in the NFL. We didn't do a recap of Week 5, but we saved it this little moment for you. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week. We're going to do a preview podcast of the week and the slate of games for Week 6 in the NFL. Week 5 was a little crazy. It saw my dude Josh Gordon finally score a touchdown. We didn't get to really. We'll get to all that stuff once we cover these games, but. I got to tell you, that was the proudest moment of my life to see Josh Gordon come back in the NFL and catch a touchdown. I cried.
Well, I mean, it was definitely a touching moment. Oh, wait, you're not talking about Drew Brees breaking the record.
No, I don't care so much about that. I just mostly the Josh Gordon touchdown. That's really what we're here for, I think, at the end of the day. But we have the full slate of games for Week 6, and we're going to run down them. We have the picks on our website. If you want to check them out, thechunkpod.com. All the chunkers, they throw their picks in every week as if it's somehow going to mean something at the end of the season. But we have the leaderboard, and currently, after Week 5, Vinny and Lynch are tied at 44 and 34 on their picks. So they're plus 10 on their picks, which sounds pretty awful to the common man. But picking NFL games is extremely difficult week to week. It's hard to understand, and nobody gets why the Bills win games either. I don't understand why Buffalo Bills keep winning. But tied for third, Reggie and myself are one game back, 43 and 35. JJ, you're sitting in the fifth slot, 42 and 36. You're only 2 games back. And then Vince just kind of doing his own thing at number 6. He's 35 and 43. Playing contrarian on a lot of games where it doesn't really make sense to. But he's going to get back in the game if he keeps up with this strategy.
Well, put it this way: Bill Cowher is 46 and 30 before Week 5, so we can't be doing that bad.
Yeah, I think for just regular old dudes, regular old chunkers, I think we're doing a pretty decent job. As long as I stay in the positive and something really catastrophic doesn't happen, I think I can finish the season in the plus, and that's really, to me, I can sleep at night with that. But we can get right into it. Let's just start off with the Sunday slate of games. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to Atlanta, playing the Atlanta Falcons. What do you think you're going to be seeing from this one? Other than Jameis Winston starting for the Bucs again, sadly.
Yeah, so I was hoping that we would be seeing Devonta Freeman come back and kind of tear the Buccaneers apart, but it's looking pretty grim for him again this week. We got the news update that his injury is it looks like fully healed.
I think he's the other injury's fine. It's a bone contusion in his foot. This seems like a whole separate issue, and he's now week to week. He's almost assuredly going to miss this week and maybe even a couple weeks beyond. So just when you thought you could see the horizon on Devonta Freeman coming back and saving your fantasy football team, this happens, and now Tevin Coleman and even Ito Smith are going to have a role in the backfield there for the Falcons offense. And on the Bucs side of the ball, Jameis Winston starting, it really just kind of deflates all fantasy prospects for the Buccaneers. It makes me sad to say it. I miss Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. You'd think that all those analysts and experts and coaches and scouting departments, they would have realized that the dude who threw just as many picks as he did touchdowns probably was going to do it in the NFL as well. And what started off as a decent start to his career, Jameis really has not produced the way that I think the team was hoping he would. And despite all the talent they have on the offense, plus they don't really have a great run game. So I think the Falcons are definitely going to win for sure.
Yeah, and so do JJ. Obviously, you. Well, that's you. I'm reading the list off, and you're right here in front of me. Okay, so on our website you can find it. But JJ, Vinny, Reggie, and myself all choosing the Falcons, and it looks like Bucks. The only two people picking the Bucks is Lynch, the Buccaneers fan, and Vince, who is again playing contrarian to consensus here. Is pretty much the Falcons are going to take this away, especially in Atlanta. I think that's the way to go. But you mentioned the Bucks run game. It is a confusing situation. Peyton Barber in the preseason won the job outright, the starting job, and then as soon as the season starts, I don't understand. He's getting like double-digit carries a game, but he's not doing anything. I don't know if he has a run over 10 yards. You know what I mean? It's just weird to see. And they finally activated rookie Ronald Jones. He's coming back. Well, actually, he did before the bye week. So I'm thinking that with a bye week to kind of get him prepped, he's going to be given the shot to take over this backfield. And I'd be interested to see how that plays. But to me, with Winston at the helm, the whole offense suffers. And I'm almost 99% sure Deshaun Jackson is kind of on record as saying, like, endorsing Ryan Fitzpatrick as the quarterback. So there may even be a little rift in the locker room. I don't want to speculate, but from what I'm hearing on the interwebs, because, I guess you can hear sounds on the internet too, but mostly tweets. You don't really hear tweets, but I'm reading a lot of stuff, and that's what I'm seeing.
Well, dude, I mean, I would be pissed too if we started the season 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden this goober comes back and gets put in and the team goes to clearly there's a stark contrast between the offense with Ryan Fitzpatrick and, with Jameis Winston.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we spent a little too much time on this game, to be completely honest with you. I think the Bucks with Winston at the helm, I don't think have a chance in this game. I think the Atlanta Falcons take this one pretty easily. Even without your boy Devonta Freeman. Moving on, the L.A. Chargers going to Cleveland, playing the Browns with Baker Mayfield at the helm. They're a different football team with him there. They've actually done something I don't think that's ever happened in the NFL, especially within the first 5 weeks. They have ended the game with every possible outcome you can do in the NFL. They started with a tie. They've won in regulation. They've lost in regulation. They've won in overtime, and they've lost in overtime. They've done it all, and in 5 games, that's how their season's going. But to be fair, at the end of the day, they've won 2 games, and that's, as a Cleveland Browns fan, that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Browns with Baker Mayfield, I think that they have the ability to play with pretty much any team that they come across in their schedule. They scored a whole lot of points against the Raiders and lost on controversial calls. And then they beat the Ravens, who we all were really high on, and made the Ravens look just unable to even have a good offense.
Yeah,
so
that was a really poor game to watch. If you're watching that game, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's yeah, so many Browns games like that. And I like the Chargers. I think that they have a really strong team. I just, at Cleveland Browns, with the Cleveland coming off a win, I think that Baker Mayfield and crew, just go out there and kick some butt.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it. Obviously, I don't think anybody doesn't want to see the Browns succeed, especially after being so mediocre for so long. I'd like to see them get the win. In this game, picked the Chargers. I think they're the overall better football team right now. The Browns have so much potential, but, I mean, there's still room for mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, Antonio Callaway, a wide receiver for the Browns, rookie, he is so good athletically. Unfortunately, the man, he's got his fingers can't catch the ball. They just don't, he can't wrap them around the football, but he's getting so many opportunities. I may start him this week in fantasy. He may lead the league in drops or something. It's very possible, but he's getting so many opportunities to succeed. I'm going to probably wind up rolling him out this week and maybe even start him in my fantasy league.
He's open all the time. I mean, he's a quick dude. He seems to run his routes really crisp and get separation. But between Tyrod, a few weeks ago, and they can't get him. They can't either get him the ball or he can't manage to take it in.
Yeah.
So.
If he starts pulling him in, though, he's going to be a hell of a player, and I'm just kind of counting on it as the season progresses that he's going to do something for me fantasy wise. Especially with Rashard Higgins is now week to week with an injury. he's going to have all the opportunity in the world alongside Jarvis Landry to catch footballs. Landry and Njoku and him are basically the only thing they have going for them in the pass catching game. I mean, Duke Johnson was catching a lot of balls last year, but he's almost been phased out to make room for Carlos Hyde, who's obviously a much better runner. And Nick Chubb is now getting carries, which deservedly so. They spent a lot of draft capital on him. I think he deserves the opportunity. But they did just spend a lot of money to bring Duke Johnson back, so I'm not entirely sure what their plan is with him or why that's going on.
Well, he was their top receiver last year, so it's interesting to see him not as involved.
Yeah, I totally agree. And he may be somebody that other teams may be trading for. I mean, come trade deadline, I know they just re-upped him for a new contract, but there are teams out there looking for a running back. Please see the Eagles currently as they try to figure out what's going on with them. Although, would Duke Johnson be much better than a Corey Clement or even Wendell Smallwood at this point has looked pretty decent, and I don't know. We'll have to see about that. But moving forward, the Indianapolis Colts taking on your New York Jets in New York. What say you about this game?
I think this is another game that's kind of a toss-up, but as a homer and coming off of an impressive victory against the Broncos, I am hoping that the Jets can pull it out. Honestly, I think especially if T.Y. Hilton is out, I don't think that the Colts really have the offensive. I mean, Ebron's been doing well for them. I think the Jets have more offensive talent, and I think that their defense is definitely better than the Colts defense.
I need to make a T-shirt saying I survived Isaiah Crowell because I played against him in fantasy last week. Nick started him against me, and when I saw what he did, I had no idea what I was in for. I had no idea he was even capable of that. And another thing I got to say, Robbie Anderson, go F yourself, dude, because I drafted him midway through the draft fantasy. I mean, I had him on my team. He had opportunities. He scored a touchdown even, but at some point you just had to cut ties with him. I cut him. He sits on waivers, and he was a free agent for multiple weeks. Has this monster game, and now he's on your team. Could you have any more Jets players on your team?
No, not really. Not unless we do defensive players.
Yeah.
But, Isaiah Crowell's rushing performance last week was the greatest game of any running back in Jets history. And yard-wise, it was almost a top 50 performance in the NFL history. So
pretty nuts. And totally random, by the way. Nobody came into the week saying, you know who I think is going to go over 200 this week? Isaiah Crowell. Well, how did that even happen?
The crow hose knew that he was going to rush for 200.
Dirty little crow hose. I don't understand. But as far as picking the game, 4 out of 6 chunkers agree the New York Jets are going to be beating the Indianapolis Colts this week. We're going off our website, it's thechunkpod.com if you want to see all the chunkers' picks for the week and see how we're stacking up on the leaderboard for the entire season. But anything else you want to say about the New York Jets coming up this week? I think the Colts on their side of the ball, you're right, T.Y. Hilton out is definitely going to hurt them. Marlon Mack, though, may finally play this season. I also drafted Marlon Mack and then traded him away under the guise that he was going to be something big, I promise, at some point. But I think when he comes back, he's a good player. I'd like to actually see him on the football field, and we might be getting that this week.
Yeah, I mean, Hines has been doing well also, but the Jets' running defense is actually pretty good among the things that they are okay at defensively. Their run stopping is pretty good with Leonard Williams and Jamal Adams coming off the side. But we'll see, obviously. I mean, the Jets are capable of losing to literally any team. So they could certainly make me very sad this Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on. We are going to go overseas to London, where the Seattle Seahawks are taking on the Oakland Raiders. Not a home game for either of them, but technically it's a home game for Oakland, which rightfully so. Take a home game from Oakland because they're leaving anyway. You know what I mean? Forget them. They're going to L.A. anyway. Or not L.A., Las Vegas. I get my losses mixed up. But what do you think you're going to be seeing in this one? I mean, it's a lot of travel. They're traveling 8 time zones away from their normal time zone. These are 2 West Coast teams going all the way to London, trying to get acclimated and playing on Sunday.
I picked the Raiders. The Seahawks offense has not been impressive to me as of late, despite the fact that I chose Russell Wilson way too early in our fantasy draft. And the Raiders, they're kind of an enigma. I mean, they're very hot and cold. They have shown that they can score lots of points, and they've shown that they can do absolutely nothing on the offense. I think that this will probably end up being a low-scoring game.
Yeah, I would agree.
Unless the fatigue gets to the defensive players and the game just blows wide open. I just don't see it, really, though, on the Seahawks side.
Yeah, the Seahawks are in a weird spot. Right now, I mean, at running back, Chris Carson had an amazing game. In the following week, he's not even suited up, and they have Mike Davison, who also has a great game. The backfield is very confusing to me. It's nice to know that they have 2 running backs that can do that, but fantasy-wise, it's going to be tough to figure out what the hell's going on there. If you had Chris Carson, it's a roller coaster ride, really. Doug Baldwin is coming back. He's trying to get more acclimated. Obviously, he's coming back from injury. He was out for a little while. Tyler Lockett has been the only consistently decent fantasy football player, and I've been on him for a few years. I never actually thought he had it in him to be a consistent fantasy football player from a wide receiver standpoint, but I was playing in a couple other leagues where they counted return yards, and he was like cash money in return yard leagues because he was doing punts and kicks at the same time. But isn't this Marshawn's first time playing the Seahawks since leaving that team? Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not even sure that they've had this matchup before, but we were split down the middle. It's 3-3. No real consensus here, but I did wind up picking the Seahawks. I think I don't want anything to do with the Raiders. I don't like the Raiders. Derek Carr makes me sad. During the draft, I really did like that when you picked up Russell Wilson. I still like Russell Wilson. I think as the season progresses, he will come into form. I think what you've seen before, but I don't like Derek Carr. And I said it on the last podcast about Amari Cooper. He popped off, right? He popped off. He had like the best game all season, one of the best wide receiver games from anybody. And I said to everybody, sell him now for a bag of potato chips. If whatever you could get for him, he goes out and catches 1 ball for 10 yards last week. And I honestly don't foresee anything. I said a few weeks. You're going to get a few weeks of this, and he's going to boom again. But if you didn't trade him last week, shame on you. I did everything I could. I tried to help you out, people, and it didn't work.
Yeah. You know what, though? Since we're talking about fantasy predictions here, Mike Davis, 2 solid games in a row. He went off for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns that 1 week against Arizona. Came back last week, 68 yards and a touchdown, taking some of those carries from Chris Carson. I would not be surprised to. I'm riding the Mike Davis train again this week, and I hope that he runs all over the Raiders, but not enough to win.
Yeah, no, listen, I hope it works out for you. I really do. I just think right when you sit there and you trust Pete Carroll in his decision making, he will turn the tables on you, and you'll wonder at the end of the game, why did Mike Davis not even put his jersey on? You know what I mean? Like, why was I not informed that he wasn't on the football field all game? But Mike
Davis will be in the position to give me the win, and then Pete Carroll will call the slant.
Yes, or he'll throw it at the goal line. And that's we all know how that plays out. Anyway, I don't like the Raiders. I picked the Seahawks. You on the other side picked the Raiders. So we will see. One of us will make up a game here, and one of us will fail miserably. Moving on, the Carolina Panthers going to the Washington Redskins. I mean, everybody picked the Panthers coming off a bye. Well, no, not coming off a bye week. They had a bye week 2 weeks ago, but they've already had their bye. They had a week 4 bye. One of my least favorite things in the entire NFL is, as a football player in the NFL, I would be so angry if after 3 weeks I already had a week off and then I had to go the rest of the way, all the way with Super Bowl aspirations without a bye week. That would make me very sad. But consensus was pretty clear here. Everybody picking the Carolina Panthers over the Washington Redskins in this one.
Yeah, it's just a difference in talent. I think the Redskins are going through a rebuilding phase, and the Panthers, despite their slight dysfunction, I mean, they got McCaffrey, they got Funchess, they got Cam, and I mean, I just don't see them losing to the Redskins.
Greg Olsen, I think, is projected to come back in this game too. Hopefully, he won't hurt his foot again for the 57th time in his career. I'd like to see Greg Olsen be out there because he is a big part of the offense. But I mean, he is slated to come back this week. And on the Redskins side of the ball, if they're in a rebuilding mode, then shame on them because they really don't have a lot of good young pieces on that offense. I mean, you got Alex Smith, Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson's not super young, but he's probably their best player on offense is Chris Thompson. He's the best receiver to me personally, if you're asking me. But I mean, Jamison Crowder's out there. You got Jordan Reed, who is a ticking time bomb. The dude is made of glass. I don't know. It's just you're in a bad position if you're a Washington Redskins fan. And if you have anybody on their fantasy-wise, I would only be happy with Chris Thompson, and even then, you're due for a dud every once in a while in that aspect. Moving on, Buffalo Bills, who are somehow keep winning games. I don't know. They've only won 2, but it feels like they've won 50. This is already a successful season for them. But the Buffalo Bills taking on the Houston Texans, and again, no chunkers out here are willing to throw their picks at the Buffalo Bills. You don't want to catch lightning in a bottle, but everybody picked the Houston Texans pretty unanimous.
Yeah, and this was another game that was just so hard to pick because you have the Titans that go out there and beat the Eagles, and then you have the Bills go out and beat the Titans. How do you pick the Bills over the Texans when the Texans clearly are way more talented and the Bills are just the Bills, and it's so hard. And I could definitely see the Bills, coming out of this game with a win. Both teams, I think are kind of sloppy on offense. But I don't know. I liked the Texans with a slight edge over the Bills in this game.
It looks like Lamar Miller will be back. Not that that's anything exciting for fantasy football owners. Unless you own Lamar Miller, if you want 10 points in Fantasy Football League, get Lamar Miller. You will not get anything more, and thankfully, you probably won't get anything less. He is Mr. 10. He can get you double digits, but you will never, ever have a crazy pop-off game. He's pretty consistent with the double digits. It looks like he's going to be back, and I got to give a shout-out to my boy Kiki QT. I picked him up in fantasy football. Obviously, we're talking about fantasy football, but I picked him up as a flyer, stuck on my bench. I was worried that one game where he went over 100 yards without Fuller, that it was just because Fuller got hurt at the end of that game and they were just peppering him with targets. It looks like he's going to be an actual decent part of the offense, and the three-headed monster of Hopkins, Fuller, and Kiki, it looks like that's going to be a pretty decent thing moving forward. And I think the Bills in this game, I think you're going to see the best game of the season for LaShawn McCoy, because I think it's all these trade talks swirling. There were some things going around where McCoy may go back to the Eagles in a trade, because the Eagles are looking for a running back, and they obviously just come off a Super Bowl win. They don't want to fall short. He seems like a very attainable player for them, and they're familiar with him. I think the Bills may try to pump his numbers up a little bit in this game to see if they can get a little more capital back in a trade.
Yeah, that's not a bad thought. He was their leading receiver last week with 23 yards. Wow,
that's something. Oh,
so, I agree. Definitely buy or throw McCoy on your starting lineup for the week.
Yeah, if McCoy, McCoy on the Buffalo Bills is not great fantasy prospects wise, but McCoy on the defending Super Bowl championship Eagles, then that's I could get with that. He's pretty much aging. He's over 30 at this point. But him on the Eagles, obviously that's money. So if you can hold on to him long enough, that's definitely something you can look forward to. The Arizona Cardinals are taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are a very confusing football team to me. To me, their offense, passing-wise, Kirk Cousins is slinging the hell out of it until Dalvin Cook comes back, which, according to this report, he's a full practice participant, and he will be back this week. I think you're finally going to reap the rewards of a Dalvin Cook. Of course, 1 week after I sold him in our fantasy football league, I traded him away.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, that's really how you got to play it. But honestly, if they're saying he's full participant in practice, if you have Dalvin Cook, given in bye weeks, and you may be struggling to get a W, you may be willing to take the shot and just roll him out there come this week if he's starting and he's ready to play. I think they wouldn't throw him back out there unless he was ready to go for a full load.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Arizona defense, but I think that the Vikings offense is really impressive. I'm actually surprised that their defense has not been better this year. But hopefully, I'd love to see Dalvin come back and finally find his spot as a leading rusher.
Yeah, second round pick in our league. I think if you held on to him this long and you still have hope, or maybe you bought low on him, I think it was a good move because when he comes back, you're gonna get a legit. I say RB1, but I think maybe top 15 is what more you could expect, especially as the season goes on. But that offense is too good. Their offensive line is butt cheeks, but I think there's enough opportunities in the passing game for him to catch dump offs. He's going to get you at least 50-plus yards receiving. So in PPR, he's going to be good, I think. And in this game, the consensus is the Vikings beat the Cardinals because the Cardinals' offense is abysmal. I mean, other than David Johnson, and it makes me sad to say because I'm a huge Larry Fitzgerald fan, I feel so bad that he's at this point in his career, and this is how this season's going. This could be his last year, and he's having the worst season of his career.
Yeah, you got to figure that dude's retiring this year. He was holding out, hoping maybe
Bradford was going to do something. Yeah.
Yeah. But, this is why, Lynch was really hot on David Johnson and the Cardinals in our preseason podcast. And I don't know. I didn't see it, and it doesn't seem to be what he had in mind. Doesn't seem to be turning into reality here on the field for the Cardinals.
Yeah, David Johnson, one of my favorite players in the league right now, and I feel bad for him too that he has to partake in this offense. But he did score a few touchdowns last week. He's going to be the guy who gets the touchdown if they can ever make it to the red zone. He's going to be the one to get the first couple touches. So I mean, if you have David Johnson, you'll be able to, sleep happy on that. But outside of that, their offense is abysmal, and just stay away in general. So the consensus is Vikings are going to walk away with this one pretty handily. But moving on, this one we were split down the middle. Pittsburgh Steelers, Cincinnati Bengals. I think this is going to be a really good game. And you and I both say Cincinnati Bengals are going to take it, but Vinny, Lynch, and Reggie say otherwise. I think the Steelers might do it. And I've been very low on the Steelers all season long, and I'm going to stick by it. I mean, I don't see the Steelers. I don't know. They had a good game last week, but I don't like their squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I mean, the AFC North games, I feel like, are always competitive. Always, for the most part, comes down to the end. I just, other than the Browns, and even not so much this year, you just don't see these teams like blowing each other out. They always play tough. But I really like what the Bengals have been doing lately. I mean, they got Boyd, they got Green. Giovanni Bernard has been, it looks like he's had the best, couple games rushing that he's had in a long time.
Yeah, unfortunately he died. Not like actually dead, but he's actually not playing this anymore. But for at least the next few weeks, he is now injured just in time for Joe Mixon to return. So Joe Mixon is back. He played last week. But yeah, Bernard, I think, is out for a couple more weeks. Something happened. I don't remember, but I didn't really care at the time because as a Joe Mixon owner in another league, I was like, okay, cool, more touches for Joe Mixon. And that's sad that that's how we think. But in fantasy world, you just go rest up there, buddy.
Mixon had 22 rushes for 93 yards last week. So
yeah, Mixon's going to be back. I think this is going to be run heavy. You're going to see a lot of Mixon, and you're going to see a lot of James Conner, who is still holding his own. I mean, just when people thought he started trickling down, he was on the downswing of the season. with all this Le'Veon Bell talk coming back, and he showed up last week and balled out. He had a pretty sweet week last week for fantasy owners if you have him. So it's that weird dynamic. You never know what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell. I honestly don't think he's going to come back and have an effect on James Conner. So if I actually am interested in buying James Conner. To anybody who may be thinking he's a rental at this point or he might not be season long, I think season long you're going to have a decent running back with James Conner.
Yeah, it clearly shows that James Conner is the real deal, that he's been so consistent so far this season. It also speaks probably a little bit to the running game that the Steelers have. And I mean, Mike Tomlin's teams have always been pretty successful with the run, I think. So
yeah, definitely.
This is going to be a really fun game. I'm really looking forward to seeing this game, as well as a couple of the other games we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
Yeah, well, one of the games that may not be as fun, the Chicago Bears taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are like an enigma. I don't understand. I don't understand how they've gotten so many wins. I think they've gotten 3 so far. They 3-2. They were 3-0 when they went up against the Patriots. The Patriots smacked them back down, and I think they're going to kind of live down in that area. However, if you're on our website, again, it's thechunkpod.com. You can check out a lot of other cool stuff. We put up a couple movie trailers this week. But the picks for this week, NFL Week 6, I am standing alone on the side of the Miami Dolphins, even though I am very confused on how they operate.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins, they won 3 games that they probably should have won. And I think they're going to have a very rough rest of the season. I mean, they got the Bears, they got the Packers, they've got the Patriots, they've got the Vikings, and the Jaguars.
Yeah.
So, you Miami fans out there that were very happy with this 3-2 start, remember this feeling.
Yeah.
Because your very, very sad rest of the season starts with Tannehill getting sacked probably 4 times.
Oh, I don't doubt that he's going to get sacked quite a bit. I have no faith. The Bears' defense is top 3. It's elite. It's as good as it gets, especially with Khalil Mack. I have no faith in the Bears' offense, even though they just had probably the best Bears' offensive game in maybe 5 years. Last week, I don't know. Oh, not last week. A week before last. I think they were on a bye week, but I don't trust Trubisky. I'm not a fan at all, and I think that was a fluke, and I think a lot of people might be buying into the fact that this offense might be something. But I just think the Dolphins in Miami can steal this one away from the Bears, and that's just, I mean, obviously it's just me out here on an island by myself, but we'll see how that one goes for sure. Moving on, we're going to check out the undefeated Los Angeles Rams taking on the Denver Broncos. Again, I mean, the consensus here, obviously, the Los Angeles Rams look like freaking world beaters out there, rivaling the greatest show on turf in the early 2000s. Not quite hitting the numbers. There was somebody did the research online. I was looking at it. They're close, but yardage numbers are off by at this point in the season by about 100 or so yards. So they have the potential to be one of the greatest offenses of all time if they can keep up what they're doing. Almost sustaining 3 wide receivers that are on pace for like 1,300 yards of each. It's pretty incredible what Jared Goff, Brandon Cooks, and Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods are all doing over there. However, not Robert Woods. Robert Woods is the only one who made it out of that game without a concussion, it looks like. But Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks both suffered concussions. They're going through concussion protocol, but everything I'm hearing from out of there, that they'll be able to play this in this game, which not like they'll need them. I don't really think they'll need them, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, if the Jets can score 34 points on this Broncos defense, I can only begin to imagine what the Rams are going to do to them.
Yeah.
The only advantage the Broncos have, which they always have, is that they have a home game here against the Rams. And so I think that, maybe we'll give them a bit of a competitive edge, but nobody in the NFL is going to beat this Rams team.
Yeah. Are you saying they're going undefeated? Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, the only team that even looks to have the same firepower is the Chiefs.
Yeah.
and I mean, we'll see how it goes.
All right, and I agree. I think I understand where you're coming from. I think they're going to. I don't see a way that they lose. I mean, it depends on how it shapes out, unless an injury happens. I mean, obviously you don't want that, but they're looking incredible. And this game, I don't think we should even really bother much with talking wise, because I mean, if the Broncos on their side of the ball, I guess if I had one suggestion, it would be stop giving the ball to Devontae Booker. Devontae Booker, I don't understand how he even makes it on the field. They have two really good rookie running backs in they got Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. They're very good running backs. And their offensive line is a pretty good offensive line. However, I don't understand the thought process of bringing in Devontae Booker, who is a proven dud. The dude's a plotter, and every time he comes in the game, it makes me sick. I don't even know how he gets carries.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas got 5 receptions, the same as Booker did this past game. Not sure how you square that, but
yeah, it's a weird thing going on in Denver right now. But they do have good young pieces. It's just a matter of piecing it together, and it won't be this week against Los Angeles. So that's how we'll be playing that one. Moving on, the Baltimore Ravens are taking on the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. And again, this is another one where we're split down the middle. 3 on the Ravens, 3 on Titans. Lynch, Reggie, and myself are picking the Ravens for this one. But you, Vinny, and Vincent are picking the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams had really disappointing losses last week. And both of these teams before last week were both teams that we were talking about how impressed we were. So I don't know what to think about the Ravens and the Titans right now. I think this is probably another toss-up game. I guess I just have this feeling that the Titans defense is probably better than the Ravens defense. And that's why I gave them the edge. Admittedly, I have not really been following either of these teams very closely, other than to get my Lamar Jackson news.
Yeah, well, they are very easy to avoid. Both of these games, I mean, as far as highlights popping up on your TV or on the internet, I mean, they're not spectacular highlight teams, but they are getting wins. And it's just a matter of I am high on the Titans. I have them. Both of these teams I have in the playoffs in our NFL preview podcast that we did a few weeks back. I put both of these teams in the playoffs, but in this particular instance, I think the Ravens. Jimmy Smith's now back on defense, and but one thing's confusing for me on the Ravens side of the ball is Flacco obviously is a strange player. He's got a Super Bowl under his belt, but I just don't. He's just an odd quarterback. I mean, like you said, Lamar Jackson's obviously waiting in the wings. But their wide receivers, other than John Brown, who he didn't come out of nowhere, but they signed him with expectations. They also signed Michael Crabtree, who to me has been very lackluster fantasy-wise. This dude was a stud last year in Oakland, and now it's almost like you pick Crabtree with all these expectations, and nothing's really coming to fruition on him.
You could say the same about Alex Collins, was another player on their team that everybody was very excited for and just has not performed the way that they want. I don't know if their game plan just keeps getting blown up, and so they're not able to utilize these guys the way they want, or if there's just some sort of dysfunction that's happening, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm still kind of I won't say high on Alex Collins, but I'm still holding out hope that Alex Collins is going to finish the season strong. They keep giving him opportunities despite the fact that he keeps fumbling. If he can get that crap in order, he's a 5+ yard to carry back, and they just need to start feeding him. And as the season progresses, as the weather changes, as the game scripts change, I think you're going to start seeing that. But in this one, I picked the Ravens, you picked the Titans. We will see how that one turns out. Moving on, Jacksonville Jaguars going to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. The Cowboys are another team that's very confusing to me, but apparently not to everybody else. This matchup, everyone has picked the Jaguars unanimously, despite the fact that Bortles is just as much a wild card as the Dallas Cowboys are.
Yeah, I think that the Cowboys are probably one of the worst teams in the NFL right now.
Ooh, don't tell Reggie that.
Sorry, Reggie. We were talking about this. They don't have a true wide receiver one, and they can't just expect Zeke to put the team on his back every week. Combine that with the fact that Dak just really isn't the quarterback that they were hoping that he would be. I'm not very impressed with this team. I think the coaching also, they've never really made it to the big show with this coach. Not that I can remember, at least. And yeah, I mean, they're just, even if Blake Bortles throws 3 picks, I don't think that they're going to lose this game.
Yeah, and actually Reggie sent a message. He wasn't able to make it on the podcast, but he wanted to know that if they lose this game, if the Cowboys wind up losing this game, at what point do you start, how hot does the seat get for Jason Garrett there? I mean, like I don't know. He's been kind of a middling, they haven't really made a lot of progress. Obviously, they peaked with Dez Bryant in his prime and with Romo, but obviously with Dak, they had a good season. First season of Dak, everybody was like, holy crap, this kid can do it. And like you said, he's kind of plateaued, and if anything, maybe even gone down in quality of play. But I don't know. They're an interesting team. They do have Ezekiel Elliott, who is, that dude's a franchise piece. That guy is solid. But their offensive line isn't as good as it was. I mean, everything's kind of dropped off, which is sad because when you have a quarterback who is serviceable on a rookie quarterback or a rookie contract, you should have had multiple chances at Super Bowls by building what they did with Russell Wilson in Seattle. You build the team around the fact that you're not paying billions of dollars for your quarterback. You know what I mean? All that extra money should have been spent on defense or freaking wide receivers, for that matter. Terrence Williams shouldn't have been your number 2 wide receiver for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like that. You got.
Plus, they have one of the best lines in the NFL. I mean, they drafted those dudes and paid those dudes. They had DeMarco Murray running like a champ behind him, and now Zeke. They just look. I think that the Cowboys, for whatever reason, were so reliant on Jason Witten, and I really think that his retirement shocked this team. And I think that he was probably a big part of their offense
and their locker room,
a safety valve for Dak. And I think that the loss of Jason Witten really has impacted this team a lot more than they'd like to admit.
Yeah, there's no real pass catching threat out. I mean, they signed Allen Hurns. They drafted Gallup. I mean, nothing's really coming to in the pass catching game. Dez Bryant's gone, and that relationship is a whole nother beast. I don't. It seems like every week we're getting some drama, like Jerry Jones going after Dez, and then Dez smacking back. I don't even know. It's a bunch of drama going on, not a lot of winning going on. And if the season progresses the way that it is, Jason Garrett very much so should be on the hot seat. I think they are due for some sort of change. And if it's got to be on that aspect, Jason Garrett, I mean, that's the way you got to do. You got to pull the plug. So I don't know. I think they're about due for some change there. Just keep Ezekiel Elliott, and then just everybody else we can turn it over.
But you know what? I mean, who knows? Like, the NFC East is so bad this year so far, asterisk.
Yeah.
That it's really anybody's division right now. So, I don't know. I said it before during our preseason podcast. If the Eagles do not win this division, they are not going to the playoffs this year. And so far, they have not been able to put it together. The Cowboys have not been able to put it together. And the Giants, if the Giants win tonight, that's a pretty big deal, I think.
Yeah, well, that whole division, they're all tied for the top. I think the most wins that they have is 2. I mean, it is a logjam at the top, and as the season progresses, obviously somebody will rise to the top. I do think the Eagles will get their crap in order. It's not a hard division to win. I really don't think so. So I think they will squeak into the playoffs and win this division. I don't foresee the Redskins doing it. I just, from what I've seen from the Cowboys, I don't see it. The New York Giants are a wild card, even though they've already got 4 losses. They have the offensive potential and the firepower to keep up with teams. It's just their defense is butt, and Eli Manning is what he is. Yeah, Eli Manning. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, let's talk about the next game.
Yeah.
That's probably, I think, the most exciting game of this entire week is the Chiefs and the Patriots. We were kind of kind of split a little bit. Vinny, you and Vinny chose the Patriots, and the rest of us chose the Chiefs. What do you think?
Yeah, I see. The Chiefs. I mean, they're still undefeated at this point too. It's got to end at some point. I don't know. They're really, really good. To me, they're not as good as the Rams. And I think the Patriots are going to find a way to kind of expose them in Foxborough. I think there's a way to win it. It's Sunday night. I do foresee. I mean, obviously, I picked them. The Patriots finding a way to win this game, and I also somehow. And I'm not even just saying this because I have him on my fantasy team, but for some reason I got a feeling that Josh Gordon's going to catch, 5 touchdowns this game. It's really weird. I got this weird feeling right now. It's odd.
Look, I never want to count the Patriots out. And it's not just me being a Jets fan that is saying that they're going to lose. I just think that this Chiefs team has been pretty impressive. I mean, Mahomes is just wrecking, and they got a lot of firepower. They have what it takes to keep up with Brady and that team scoring points. And I think that they may go into Foxborough and they may win that game.
Oh,
I think they're nervous. I think the Patriots are nervous.
It's very possible. I would not be shocked if the Chiefs won. I just got this feeling that the Patriots are going to find a way to slow down Patrick Mahomes. The dude's been unreal all season long, and I think there's a way to do it. I'm not Bill Belichick, so I can't explain to you how, but I think if anybody could do it, Bill Belichick could find a way to somehow get a copy of the Kansas City Chiefs playbook, maybe, I don't know, some sort of schmarmy way to do it, but I think that's possible, and that's why I'm picking the Patriots, but, I mean, that's obviously not the scientific way. But I think they're definitely they're both really good football teams. I just think the New England Patriots pulled this one out.
Yeah, this may be a preview of the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And then Monday night we have the 49ers without their prized piece Jimmy Garoppolo going to Green Bay to take on my Packers, who they're just kind of depressing me, obviously. And it's not necessarily the players as much as it is Mike McCarthy. I don't understand his logic, and you know what? I was a Packers. I've been a Packers fan my entire life. I've defended Mike McCarthy till I was blue in the face for years, and it's getting to this point where he just can't make decisions, and I don't know. He just is not doing it for me. His ineptitude with handling the talent on our offense. Aaron Jones is far and above the best running back on our team, and he refuses to give him touches. Obviously, last week, game script was super funky. They were down by like 20 almost instantly. But still, playmakers need the ball in their hands, obviously. Aaron Rodgers went the entire first half with like 30 yards. Like, he didn't even do anything. Then the second half, he erupted for almost 400. I don't understand why they can't string together an entire game of solid football, and to me it just keeps coming back to Mike McCarthy and just him not being able to figure out how to open up the offense.
What's also really curious about the Packers is they have, I don't know, they seem to have an issue with injuries every year. Randall Cobb is constantly injured. Jordy Nelson was injured the one year, though that was kind of a freak accident.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers. When was the last time you played a complete season?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, it seems like the last few years, Aaron Rodgers has been getting chipped away. But when your offensive line can't stop a nosebleed, I mean, he's like one of the most sacked. I think he's got to be top 3 most sacked quarterbacks in the last 5 years, maybe even the most.
I just don't see how you don't. You have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. How are you not wrecking every single game? You got to figure, I agree with you. I think it might be time for, maybe a facelift on the coaching and the front office over in Green Bay.
Yeah, it took them way too long to fire Dom Capers, our defensive coordinator. Although he was the coordinator when we won the Super Bowl, and that gimmick where it was just linebackers flying everywhere, 3 down linemen and just a buttload of linebackers. It worked that one year. They caught lightning in a bottle then, but it took them way too long to figure out that, okay, we got to let this go. We need to go back to a more traditional defense. The players we have, our linebackers get hurt all the time. We don't have enough linebackers to field a peewee football team, let alone four linebackers running around on the field. Dom Capers, they finally did let him go, and the defense, I think, has gotten better. But our cornerbacks have been injured. We drafted 2 really good ones. They're on and off injured this season. There's a lot of injuries going around. And that to me is how Mike McCarthy's going to make it through this season, is because we're going through a lot of stuff right now. Aaron Rodgers got his knee hurt. I don't know. He gets a pass way too often, and I'm ready to let go, which is saying a lot, because I've been defending him for years. I think he's an okay coach. I don't think he has it in him to make the tough decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way about a lot of NFL coaches. Marvin Lewis, who actually seems to be doing pretty well this year. He's been around for a long time, hasn't been able to produce. I mean, at least McCarthy has a Super Bowl win, but you guys haven't had a run game really in the recent memory. Your defense, other than that Super Bowl year, your defense just hasn't been like Clay Matthews and the rest of the defense used to be like them in the. I just feel like the team has kind of crumbled a bit, relying on Aaron Rodgers too much, and that maybe they need some fresh vision over there in Green Bay.
Absolutely. The coaches, especially Mike McCarthy, has skated by on the fact that he's had Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Brett Favre. And the argument, I mean, I've heard it for years. I mean, that was the argument people used against me. He's just been skating by. He hasn't been doing it. I mean, it's true. Like I'm finally willing to accept that Mike McCarthy is not. He's not. We're just not going to win a Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy again. That was like the talent on that team when we won the Super Bowl was beyond, and of course somehow we didn't find a way to keep them happy, and we keep letting young talented players go. Even Clinton Dix right now is now saying. I mean, obviously they took his quote out of context. But he was saying that he the way he sees it, he's not going to be in Green Bay next year because that's how he's playing football, and he's on his last year, his 5th year of his rookie contract. This dude's going to walk because we weren't loyal enough to re-up him before the season started. I don't understand our logic. It's a very confusing football team. But when you have a player who was a Pro Bowler in his rookie season, what are you doing? Like I just don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, well, as long as you have Aaron Rodgers, at least you have something to look forward to.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I can keep watching that all day. But, yeah, I mean, 5 out of 6 of us are picking the Packers. Vince, for whatever reason, thinks CJ Beathard is going to come to Green Bay and win on Monday night. And it very well could happen. Some stupid thing could happen, and I wouldn't be shocked. But, as a Packers fan right now, I'm willing to let Mike McCarthy go. And it's unfortunately it's not my decision. There's a lot of loyalty in Green Bay, but I think this offseason, if this is the way the season goes, we're kind of middle ground. All it takes is Aaron Rodgers to just sneeze in the direction of Mike McCarthy, and we'll watch him just pack his bags and go. So, and it might come to that in the offseason. So. One thing we didn't hit because at the time of recording, the game is pretty much going to be going on here in a matter of moments. But the Thursday night game, Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New York Giants. We didn't hit that, but we will talk about it real quick. I am standing alone on the New York Giants side. I did pick the Giants to win this game, and obviously the Philadelphia Eagles are the defending Super Bowl champions. But like I said, I think the Giants are a wild card, especially on a Thursday night game. I think they can pull it out.
Yep. I mean, every time these two teams play, just like the AFC North, the NFC East, I think pretty much anything can happen in these games. I think the Eagles are just a bit more talented. Just across the board, their defense is definitely better than the Giants' defense. It's just a matter of can Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood they both have shown flashes of having talent, and they both played really well in their playoff run last year. So with the absence of Jay Ajayi, I think that they'll probably step up and help win that game.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles win. Just something in my gut said, pick the Giants, you loser. Because I don't know why. They were 1-4 this season. They've only won one game. But I think they have it in them if Eli Manning can just put together, maybe go jump back in the time machine and put together one competent performance. I think for sure. I mean, their best quarterback last week was Odell Beckham. So, you know what I mean? We need something more from Eli Manning. I think we're going to get it in that Thursday night game. So that'll wrap up our Week 6 preview. But, I mean, on the docket for coming up here with The Chunk, if you want to get more information, go to thechunkpod.com. You can get everything that's going on our website. Obviously, we're still football intensive right now, but we will be branching out. We're going to start a new we're going to start doing some more interview podcasts. We are going to do a Get to Know the Chunkers podcast, and I haven't really run that by anybody. But, JJ, just so you know, Get to Know the Chunkers is coming.
Sweet.
Yes.
And we obviously have to talk about Venom, the movie,
Yes.
well as the Spider-Man game.
Saw Venom on opening night.
Red Dead Redemption, and there's so much other stuff we have to talk about.
We will, we will absolutely be doing that podcast soon because I do have a lot of words for that Venom movie, and I will give you a spoiler alert. Not all of them are great, but we did see it. We wound up seeing that the Thursday night that it opened. I stayed up a little past my bedtime to catch that flick, and I am glad we watched it. But we'll get into that obviously in a future podcast, hopefully very soon. It's been pretty football intensive, but if you want to follow at the Chunk Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, you can find this podcast if you're listening to it on maybe Podbean and you want to find it somewhere else, maybe a little easier to listen. You can get it on iTunes. You can get it on Spotify. You can find it on the Google Play Store if you search under podcast there. We are very accessible. And we look forward to doing a lot more in the future. But yeah, like I said, I've been trying to reach out. We're going to find some people to bring in for interviews, but I don't want to start doing standalone interview podcasts until we basically do it to ourselves. We look in the mirror and we say, listen, who the hell are we? You know what I mean? I want people to know who we are before we start talking about other people. And it sounds a little self-centered, but you know what? Damn it, we deserve it. So I just want you to be prepared for that, JJ.
I'm mentally preparing as we speak.
And I promise you this podcast will be a cluster F because it'll be the most people on the podcast that we've had since the early ones. Because the early ones, we had like upwards of 6 to 7 people on a podcast, and it got wild. I kind of want to capture that ball of energy, and we'll have to try to keep everybody in line. But we'll just say, listen, everybody on the podcast for this one podcast, and we'll just run down the line and be like, so do you like long walks on the beach and all that stuff? Yeah, we'll figure it out. But I think in moving forward, I do want to start delving into other things outside of football and sports and even gaming in general. I just want to start talking to people who are doing big things in sports entertainment and gaming, and we will be seeing that moving forward. So stick around with The Chunk. Keep up with us on our website and on our Facebook page. Give us a like while you're there, and feel free to comment on whatever you want to comment on. We read everything you guys send in, and we bring it onto the show as much as possible. So feel free to do that, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Catch you later, Chunkers.